James Carville not too shy about Biden's prospects in 2024. He's been putting out a string of videos. This is apparently on the Politicon YouTube channel. Apparently that's where these originate from, because he's just kind of surface on social media. But I traced this back to the source. So here he is, pretty confused. This guy's having a hard time of things lately, because he starts talking a little bit of sense and then he kind of loses it again.
So next year, the Trump tax cuts are coming to be renewed because they want 10-year budget projections or some bullshit. This is all bullshit they don't even tell you about. We're not going to do it on incomes over $400,000 a year. And we're going to take that money and we're going to put it into something that helps young people, because the generational thievery that has occurred in this country is criminality of the first order.
No lies there.
And we keep wondering why these young people aren't coming home to the Democrats, or why blacks are not coming home to the Democrats.
All right, I'm going to pull what we call a Weiss. I'm going to pause this for a second. All right, so this is the history of the Clinton Democrats in one crazy rant. It's the economy, stupid. They were right. And then they did nothing for the underlying structural problems in the economy. Clinton was the luckiest fucking son of a bitch ever. Anyone could have been the president at the birth of the commercialized internet and presided over a booming economy. Clinton got the credit because he happened to be in the White House. It was not policies that he initiated that created that economy. Based on the history, the kinds of policies he had, if he hadn't been there for this revolutionary technology, probably would have tanked the economy.
Yes, of course.
But anytime you've had the introduction of such a revolutionary technology, whether the automobile, radio, TV, you had a boom economy, because all of a sudden there's a whole new industry with all of the employment and investment and involved in that. Everyone had to buy a computer all of a sudden.
Right, there's demand.
You had all these internet providers. You had to wire the country. Anyone, a sock puppet could have been the president in the 90s, and there would have been a boom economy, but he got that credit. Now, they really, once they got in office, after running on "it's the economy, stupid," did nothing to change the neoliberal trajectory that Ronald Reagan had set the country on. If anything, they exacerbated it and reinforced it with banking deregulation, media deregulation. They just continued the Reagan project. So there's this history with these Clinton Democrats of diagnosing the problem properly. He's right. It is generational theft. That is a lot of what was going on. We were talking about it before offline. People over 65 think the country's doing great.
Right.
They're very happy. They're very satisfied with the trajectory of the country. This is in spite of their MSNBC, CNN addiction, because they look at their retirement funds. They've never been better. They look at their home values. They've never been better. Fuck the young. Also, poverty amongst the elderly is at an all-time low. Now, you might think, well, that's good, and it is good. We don't want old people to be poor. But the reason behind it is very bad. It's because the boomers sucked all the wealth up to their generation and left nothing for the younger generation. He gets all that. But if you notice, and this is why I say this monologue is Clinton politics distilled, he never offers a solution to that.
Right.
He never says this is what we have. We need to tax these sons of bitches because he doesn't say that.
Right.
He says they should run on the rhetoric, which is exactly what he did when he was Clinton's political advisor. Ran on the rhetoric. It's the economy, stupid. Talk about people suffering. Tell them you feel their pain. Don't actually do anything about it. He doesn't propose doing anything about any of this. So throughout this monologue, he correctly diagnoses a problem without offering solutions, except for the college thing, which I think was actually not a bad idea.
Okay.
To give the devil his due.
Give the devil his due.
Because Democratic messaging is full of shit. That's why. And talk about cost of living. And we're going to help deal with this. And don't talk about fucking Gaza and student loans. That's so out. The Harvard, that guy Della Volpe is pretty good.
God,
15 issues. You know what the number 14 and 15 issue were total? Student debt in Gaza. I forgot which order it's in.
Okay, well, God Della Volpe notwithstanding, you do have a problem in a critical swing state.
God Della Volpe fucked my wife once while I jacked off in a corner.
Yeah, exactly.
And he was good at it, too. Better than me, I got to admit.
I always gave him credit for that. No, God Della
There's
Volpe.
one man I'll let cuckold me. It's God Della Volpe.
God Della Volpe, who does the Harvard Youth Poll, which we went into on this last Carville monologue that we covered a few weeks back. First of all, the methodology of that poll is kind of insane. They don't do a straight ranking of issues.
Right.
They put one issue head-to-head against another issue, and then they rank the percentage of times that the one issue prevails over the other in terms of importance. So it's not quite I think that's a crazy way to rank issues, frankly. But generally, what you're saying, that inflation is going to trump everything this cycle, is true. However, as we demonstrated in the last segment, in a race that is very likely to come down to Michigan, where you have a 17% voter rating amongst Arab voters, not an approval rating, voter rating, means 17% of Arabs say they're going to vote for Joe Biden, down from over 50% in 2020. That's catastrophic. We've seen the numbers with young people. They are catastrophic. In a critical swing state like Michigan, you need that turnout. So just because Guy Della Volpe's survey says it's not the top issue or nowhere near the top issue for most voters doesn't necessarily mean that's not critically important in this race. This is what made it so difficult to communicate to libs after 2016 when there was this big debate. Did Trump win because of cultural grievance or because of economic anxiety? We, on this sort of like Bernie left, what we were at the time anyway, we said it was economic anxiety is what flipped the race. And they came back by saying, well, no, actually polls show most Trump voters voted Trump because of culture. Most voters vote on culture, period, across the board. If you're a cosmopolitan, liberal art collector living in Soho, you're going to vote blue. That's kind of who you are, right? Most black voters vote Democrat. The black church is associated with the Democratic Party. It's a matter of culture. White rural voters, in the Midwest and the South and the Heartland, they go to church every Sunday. Their hobby is going to the shooting range. Culturally, they're conservative. They're going to vote red. That's baked in. Where elections are won and lost are on the margins. And so in 2016, you had hundreds of thousands of people switch from Obama to Trump. Those people switched from Obama to Trump not based on culture or grievance, but based on economic anxiety. And so even though that was not a dominant factor nationwide on a macro level, it played the decisive role in who won the goddamn election. And Gaza is very likely to play that role in Michigan, especially if it all comes down to Michigan. That's why I demonstrated in the previous segment, this election likely all comes down to Michigan.
Yeah. Especially when you look at how elections are decided today. They're decided on the margins, man. We don't have blowouts anymore. We don't have Reagan 49 state kind of elections. Everything is on the margins. Everything is what a small group of people feels very strongly about. That is what decides elections now.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
And why are we...
No disrespect to Guy Della Volpe, though. Yeah, I don't mean any disrespect to Guy Della Volpe.
What total? Student debt in Gaza. I forgot which order it's in. And why are we forgiving student loans for people that go to Harvard, which, according to Scott Galloway, quite accurately, is nothing but a hedge fund that has classrooms? Well, they got a $52 billion fucking surplus. Why are taxpayers going to bail these people out? Why don't you come out for a proposal to tax every university endowment over $5 billion and use that money to give their former students relief?
That's a good idea.
That is you want to get people behind student loan forgiveness? Propose that. That is actually a good pitch.
But that is student loan forgiveness. What he's saying, he says we don't want to forgive loans. We want to tax the university endowments and then relieve the debt. That's student loan
give
forgiveness.
Them student loan forgiveness. Yeah. First he's people don't want to bail them out, but this is how you bail them out.
Yeah. Right. Exactly.
But it's really not a bad idea because it offsets the class resentment argument, which honestly is a bullshit argument. Most of the people who would be getting this relief are going to be people whose parents were too poor to pay the tuition, who went to fucking state schools. It's not mostly going to be Harvard graduates getting that relief.
Yeah, and who are still too poor to pay down the debt themselves. Right? Because people who could pay off the debt are making enough money to the point where they paid off the debt. So, no, this would be a student bailout for middle class and working class students with, unmanageable debt. But I've always said, from day one, you know how I feel about these for-profit universities. I think they should be converted into public housing. But yeah, of course student loan forgiveness should fall to, it should, happen on the backs of the universities to whatever extent possible. Like they should have to go without that money. The government shouldn't just bail them out and say, okay, now the students don't have to pay. No, the university should lose money. Absolutely.
This is the argument against student loan forgiveness that I consider valid and have throughout the debate is it doesn't actually solve anything.
Right.
It's a very temporary solution to a long-term problem. You're not addressing the problem. You're going to have the same problem in a few years.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Yep.
To give their former students relief. Or the Harvard Board of Overseers or whatever the fuck they call it, Harvard Corporation, whatever like that. And to any serious people, and my niece, came home from Princeton, and all the young people there are mad about Gaza and shit, and all of that crap you hear on TV and all that crap you read in the newspaper.
Yeah, well, I think you're underselling that a little bit. I think you're underestimating that a bit because, like I said, the elections are won and lost on the margins. Just because an issue ranks close to the bottom does not mean it's not important. And, this guy's been doing this long enough where one glance at the Electoral College map should tell you that Michigan is likely to be the whole ballgame. It's certainly a must-win for Biden. Biden really can't win without it. And so, that is an issue that you need to pay some more mind to. And look, on the economic anxiety question, like you said, it's a very Clintonian point he's making, which is, it's the economy, stupid, but what do we have to say about it? Well, really nothing. And,
Bill Clinton, your pain.
Exactly. They never really had anything to say about it. They just, as you mentioned, they got very lucky. Where that rhetoric happened to be flying out of their mouths at a time when, as you said, there was this giant demand bubble to the point where, anybody could have presided over prosperous economic times in the 90s.
Yeah.
Jerry Seinfeld was funny in the 90s.
Yeah, exactly. He's very much, it's the old saying, generals are always fighting the last war. His vision of politics is very 90s. Right. He doesn't care about those fringe issues because he's still living in an America where if you hit the right broad overall themes, you can overwhelm the dissidents by hitting that. And we don't live in that country anymore. The country is much more divided than the one in which he was a successful political consultant.
Please clap.